Welcome back to Inside City Hall. As we told you before the break, the City Council today passed a bill that would transition the city's vehicle fleet to produce zero carbon emissions in the coming years. I'm joined now by a special panel to talk more about all of this. Keith Powers is the majority leader of the City Council. He is sponsoring the legislation, and he represents parts of Manhattan from the Upper East Side down to Midtown, Murray Hill, and Stuytown. And Ben Jealous is the executive director of the Sierra Club. Thank you both for joining us tonight. And Councilman, I'll start with you. This is a pretty ambitious timeline, and 2026 kind of sounds far off, but it's really just 2 years away, and the city will have to purchase all light and medium duty vehicles electric, right? I mean, is that right? Even possible at this point? Is there enough of a supply out there?
And it's 2025, even faster than you said. Yeah. So it's possible. And the city has started doing this. What we're doing is accelerating the timeline to complete it and to start it, and to start a process where we know it's for certain it's going to happen. We also had an important part of this, which is about protecting the workers who work on these vehicles to make sure they don't lose their jobs, they get trained properly. It's ambitious, but that's what the city should be doing right now. We have to be a leader on climate change here in New York City for all other cities across this country. We're a market mover. We can make a big dent in the market if we move quick enough. So it's going to be ambitious, but we're already starting to do this in New York City anyway, and we think this is going to be a big step forward for the entire country.
So 2025 for light and medium duty, and then 2028 for heavy duty. So does that mean we're going to have electric fire trucks and street sweepers and sanitation vehicles? Like, do those already exist?
We're getting there. So the goal of this bill is to start, the first steps of it is that we won't buy any new vehicles. By 2038, we will have all of our fleet be totally electric. So now is what we buy that's new. Eventually, it's going to be everything's got to get there. There are going to be some vehicles where we're going to have to, the market's coming on board right now, and the big part about New York City doing is, like I said, we're a market mover. We can help move the market, especially with other cities. But there are some exceptions to the bill where if the thing does not exist today, we're not going to require it.
Right.
But by 2038, we are going to require it. It's going to have to be a process to get there. And there is technology out there. We're not going to bankrupt the city doing this. We have some exceptions for price. But the point is that we have to start pushing. We have to push harder because we are in a very urgent moment when it comes to climate change.
Right. So, Ben, let me ask you, I mean, the councilman talked about being a market mover. Obviously, the municipal vehicle fleet is just a fraction of the total vehicle fleet out there. But I guess the idea is you are sort of pushing the market forward and creating more supply, right? Is that the idea?
Yes, I mean, this will be a beacon for the rest of the country. It'll also be a boon to the health of the average New Yorker. I mean, I think about my early days as an organizer in Harlem and families that lived near bus depots and the way they had to suck smog 24 hours a day, the way that created asthma in kids. And this will remove those sources of childhood asthma, of respiratory disease and cardiac events in our seniors. It's a big deal.
So, Councilman, we mentioned the mayor is supportive of this, and he's been pretty out in front in terms of electric vehicles. This just sort of accelerates the process a little bit. Is there anybody who's against this bill? I mean, who's lobbying against the conversion to electric vehicles?
Look, the good news is we had 47-0 vote today. Republicans, Democrats, all different stripes.
Right. So nobody's opposed to this.
Thank God, thankfully, nobody's opposed to it. But what really matters when you do this is you get the details right.
Yeah.
You create an ambitious timeline, but you do it in a way that we can actually accomplish it. The labor portion of this to make sure workers don't get left behind was a very big part of the conversation. So it's very complicated to get to the finish line. But at the end of the day, and the way we built this bill and the way we structured the conversation was to make sure we could get as many people on board. And I'm glad to say the mayor came out today with a statement saying he's going to sign the bill. So that's great news. We don't have to fight over it. And that means that New York City is going to be the first big city in the country, or the first city in the country, to have a fully electric municipal fleet. And we're going to look at our other cities down the country and say you should follow suit.
Right. And Mayor Adams, I mean, well, let me ask you this first. You talk about workforce development. I mean, I guess you're trying to avoid unintended consequences where you have workers who do maintenance and repairs on existing vehicles, and then it's a totally different ball of wax when you're talking about electric vehicles, right? So you're trying to transition that same workforce over.
Totally right. We have so many great employees of the city right now that are doing this work. We have to make sure they have the training and the know-how to do the next step in this process, and we don't want to leave them behind. They're a really important part of the city. They're great paying jobs, good, hardworking, working class folks, and we don't want to make sure they don't get lost in this conversation. And we're really grateful of our partners in labor who stepped forward and said we want to do stuff around climate change, and we want to make sure our workforce is ready for it.
And Ben, let me ask you, it seems like a big wild card in this kind of transition is the infrastructure. Is there enough electric vehicle chargers out there, especially here in New York City, to be able to keep up with the conversion to electric vehicles? What's happening on that front?
You know, one of the heartening things that we heard from today was from the company Revel. That's one of the companies that's building those chargers throughout the city. But the city did very smart work in making sure that they had the full-on commitment to building the infrastructure as these waves of vehicles come online. You know, and to see groups like South Bronx unite behind this, to see unions wrestle through this and figure it out. That's the type of real work we have to do in this country to make a better future come faster for all our families. One of the things that's most heartening is this really came from the people. I mean, at Sierra Club, we had 2 volunteers who really took the lead on this. And they were out there today, Wayne Arden, Carl Palmquist, really just kind of digging in, then joining up with folks like South Bronx Unite, and ultimately Leader Powers did a great job of convening all the folks who might have an objection and working this through. It really contrasts with the former resident of the city, Donald Trump, who's talking all kinds of foolishness, when this really is how we lift all boats, how we lower costs, how we frankly create a better future for all our families.
And Councilman, just a few seconds left, but at some point, I mean, New York, so many people rely on street parking. A lot of people don't have a dedicated parking space, which you really kind of need in order to have the electric vehicle chargers. So, I mean, at some point, don't we hit a ceiling? Like, everybody can't have an electric vehicle in the city if you're if you're a resident with a car, can you?
No, for the personal vehicles, we still have a long way to go to make sure we build out that infrastructure. We heard from some folks today who are doing that in a grand scale, and we're starting to see New York roll this out on the street and other places in parking garages. We have a long way to go still in New York City for people with personal vehicles, and one of the biggest challenges we have to get people to convert is providing them a place where they can safely charge and do a quick charge. So that's going to be a big goal for the city. We think potentially there's an opportunity for some of the municipal lots we're using in the off hours to be used for personal vehicles too, to accelerate that for regular New Yorkers, but that's a conversation for a different time. Yeah. What we have to do right now is make sure that for the municipal fleet there is the charging stations available.
All right. Councilman Keith Powers and Ben Jealous of the Sierra Club, thank you both so much for joining us tonight. We got to take a break. Coming up, the city's recent mandate requiring buildings to leave trash bags on the curb at a later time is receiving pushback from some superintendents. I'll talk it over with the lead organizer of a new group protesting the rules. Stay with us.